Hey, this is Avi Gutman with another Ask Me Anything event brought to you by quantreasoning.com. I invite you to join me live next time. We do this every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and you can attend for free by starting your free trial at quantreasoning.com. Researchers were looking at antelopes. So antelopes is some kind of animal. That's all I know about antelopes. I don't know anything else about them. Researchers were looking at them and they noticed something interesting. They noticed a surprising phenomenon. You know how critical reasoning loves to describe a surprising phenomenon and then present as the conclusion one particular possible explanation for that phenomenon. So this is one of those. They noticed a surprising phenomenon, which is that old antelopes are more careful or more cautious than young antelopes. And they concluded that antelopes become more careful as they age, which seems like a very reasonable conclusion, and it's one possible explanation for the surprising phenomenon. It's possible that the reason why older antelopes are more cautious than young antelopes is because they become more cautious as they age. And this was a weaken question. So how do you weaken an argument which presents as its conclusion one possible explanation for a surprising phenomenon? How do you weaken that? You suggest an alternative explanation for the surprising phenomenon. You say, well, maybe that wasn't the reason for the phenomenon. Maybe this other thing is the reason for that phenomenon. That's how you weaken an argument that presents one particular explanation as the explanation for the phenomenon, right? Maybe there's a different explanation. So that was the argument, and our job was to weaken this argument. And the correct answer suggested that it wasn't that they become more cautious as they age, but rather only the cautious one make it to old age. And the antelopes that were not cautious died when they were young. So the idea there is that when you're looking at old antelopes, you're not getting a sample of all antelopes. You're just getting a sample of the antelopes that made it to old age. But when you're looking at young antelopes, you are getting a sample of all antelopes. So these samples are not, you're not comparing apples to apples. It's not an apple-to-apple comparison. It's exactly the same thing as the critical reasoning question with the guidebook writer who observed that hotels that were built pre-1930 had better carpentry than newer hotels. It's the same thing, right? Because he's not looking at pre-1930 hotels pre-1930. He's looking at pre-1930 hotels in 2021. He's looking at them now. And the hotels that are still standing from 100 years ago are not a representative sample of all of the hotels from 100 years ago. They're just a sample of the hotels from 100 years ago that are still standing. It's not that surprising that there's some correlation between the quality of carpentry in the original hotels and their chances of still being standing in 2021. Not all the hotels from 1920 are still around. Only the hotels that had good carpentry are still around. The other ones were demolished. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. You're looking at new hotels, which are going to be a representative sample of all new hotels because they're new, versus a sample of old hotels, which is not representative of all old hotels. It's only representative of the old hotels that are still around. Same thing with the antelopes. You're looking at young antelopes, and that is representative of all antelopes, because all antelopes are young at some point. And you're trying to compare that to a sample of old antelopes, but the problem with the sample of the old antelopes is you're only sampling the antelopes that didn't die, the antelopes that made it to old age. If aliens came down to Earth and compared men in the 75 and up range to 40-year-old men, you know what conclusion they might come to? They might come to the following conclusion. Men from age 40 to age 80 lose weight. Men lose weight as they age, from age 40 to age 80. Now, why would they come to such a conclusion? It's the same thing as the antelope question. When you're looking at 80-year-old men, you're only seeing the men who made it to age 80. And when you're looking at 40-year-old men, you're seeing all men, including the really fat ones. But the really fat ones won't make it to age 80, so it would seem, at face value, it would seem that men lose a lot of weight from age 40 to age 80 if you're just looking at the data. So yeah, so that's survivorship bias. It's not tested a ton on the GMAT, but when it is tested, it's usually a really hard question, like the one with the hotels and the carpentry. If you found this video useful, go to quantreasoning.com for a lot more where that came from. You should also click that like button and let me know in the comments below what you'd like me to make future videos about. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and do that and click that bell below so you get notified about future videos. See you next time.